Gold is actually a superconductor, and it starts to connect the conscious and unconscious mind. And the Assyrians, which I believe both of you have mentioned in your teachings, and I know on this podcast I've heard it already, the Assyrians used to give their children gold because they knew that it was this superconductor between the conscious and unconscious. Therefore, it would make one less available or less open to being an illusionary fear. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I'll just say something real quick. Gold, which I was actually intending to get to in my last comments, is precipitated solar energy. And if you understand the old alchemical teachings, which are very real things that I can demonstrate physically in my laboratory, gold is light that is condensed. So that's why in the prior golden ages, all the architecture was ordained lavishly with gold. There was no lack of it. And the only reason why it seems rare now is because certain people are trying to hoard it. And there is a real intelligence behind the stores of gold that put it here in the first place. So it is kind of a contrived thing, having it rare. It's really not rare. Now, in all the things that I make in my lab, I use ORMUS, as you call it. ORMUS is orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, which is based on an old atomic theory of matter, which is pretty antiquated. You have to get more into waveform mechanics to understand it. But ORMUS gold is actually transitional gold. It's transitional state, which means it's not yet metallic. It's actually ceramic. It has very unique properties. That's why I put it in all my formulas. And we have a new way of doing it now, rather than concentrating it from salts and everything, which is what most people still do. We actually make a concentration, then grow crystals. So it's very pure and very powerful. So ORMUS and transitional gold are super, super important, just like you're talking about it. And we have it in everything we make.
What is the intelligence behind gold to which you speak?
There are very intelligent beings, just like you and I, that are occupying different levels of consciousness, not necessarily in physical embodiment. They work within this realm along with elementals and other sentient life forms that are behind every single plant that grows, tree that grows, every mineral in the ground. And they are the ones that are manifesting that into our realm on our behalf to provide for our needs.
And I'll just add a tag. The point too is essentially evolve into being one of those. It's from all of my understanding is we're in a continual evolution, not Darwinian evolution, which is, materialistic and stuff and
Yes.
based on a lot of false science around genetics and everything. But no, we are here to evolve. This is a classroom for us to learn and to evolve.
Yes.
And now just one thing to tag on the money thing too is those who do end up worshiping money for money's sake do create an egregore of sort of a money god. There is a money god. It is an energetic that exists. And the more that you worship it, the more it's going to ask of you. And so that's why it's so important not to earn money for money's sake. It's to find, as Bear was saying, find a vocation, what you're passionate about in life, and to create. We're here to create and create experiences and to have beautiful, loving experiences. And when you do that, then the after effect is abundance that comes in the form of money, whether that be a fiat money, a gold money, it doesn't matter in the end.
This is what I've been talking about with my team. So members of my team, we have this discussion, and we have this discussion on AMAs and on the podcast. I got to tell you, I just think we're in the sweet spot of this conversation. I freaking love talking to you guys about this because this is the crux of change. This is the fulcrum to which really liberation and freedom exists. It's this money piece. It's this true understanding of the nuances and the layers of money. It's interesting because the more that I have focused on truly being of service. In the beginning, when I started the podcast, I was coming from an enormous amount of scarcity. And I know that you both have been there at certain points in your life, whether it was the clinic, Bear, or maybe, not enough DJ gigs, Mike, I don't know. We've all experienced it, right? This dragon, this supposed dragon that is actually us. It's constructed from our own fear. And the only way to actually meet the dragon is just to have the courage in order to do so. I think there's so much of a money wound to get to my point earlier. We've seen our parents suffer. And I say this with real compassion. I saw my mother struggle. I saw my father struggle, my brother, my entire lineage, paternal and maternal. has had such a deep, painful relationship with money. Yet the wool has been covering the eyes for so long, it almost feels on a societal level that there's an opportunity cost that would have to be paid on a very deep level for us to truly look at the concepts you're both presenting. And I think that cognitive bias about what money is, or what medicine is, or what school is, or education is, these are all the constructs that are beginning to decay. And it's both liberating and exciting, but it also brings up, I think, a massive fear in a lot of people, because the question that arises is, well, what would we do without money? How would we be able to have the social constructs of hierarchies, and who's going to clean the toilets? And, well, what do you mean that somebody that owns a hotel chain doesn't need money? And are they as valuable as the person who cleans the toilets? And to all of this, I just say, this is part of the theater. This is part of the theater that we signed up for. And this theater is literally like in the green curtain that was pulled back in The Wizard of Oz. We're the ones on the microphone, y'all. This is all the creation of our own imagination, which, Bear, you described earlier. The imagination is what creates that electrical impulse. So you can see that in our conversation, everything is so intertwined, but still the question remains, what would we do without money? How would we function as a society without money? Because this is why I added it to the Pentagon, to what I teach. So I'm curious, what will we do without money?
Well, it's interesting because it's a chicken and egg scenario. Is the reality that we see in society because of the social constructs we create, or is it because the money that's created the social constructs? So in other words, you bring up the example, who's going to clean the toilets? Well, people are cleaning toilets because we've lived in this realm of money. If you live in a realm without money, then you're going to be living in a holistic society that's much more grounded in honor and nature. And you'll probably, you won't have massive hotel chains. You won't have concrete cities that have, with this idea of exponential growth and infinite money supply and infinite growth models. You'll have a holistic connection to the earth. So you won't have any of these, like all these problems go away. But we are coming from a mindset, a frame of reference from the money world of having money. So you have to kind of like invert everything. That's why I'm a big fan of reading the Ringing Cedars books and Anastasia, because I don't know if you're familiar with those at all, Josh.
Shout out to Carrie Michelle. We have the entire library, and we've mentioned it on the podcast with Alex from Eon. So we've made a reel about the Ringing Cedars. I mean, this is like incredible intelligence you're speaking of.
Rad. Yeah, we've done multiple podcasts with Gabriel Miguel, who's the founder of the Anastasia Foundation in the United States. And but you know, for those who aren't familiar, Anastasia, she's this really the original man, this recluse in Russia, in the taiga, up in the in the wilderness of northern Russia in Siberia, and she is tapped into the original foundation of like the pre-civilization that was throughout the entire world before, quote unquote, like the fall or the takeover. And we lived in pure and as Bear was saying, balance of the polarity and within the rhythms and everything of nature. And so the true intelligence, the true technology is inside us in conjunction with nature. And so the commerce done is just all natural. It's just all in flow. And there's not the mechanistic materialism of the technocracy, as she calls it. So we're coming from this foundation of technocracy, where everything has to be like the machine, going back to Sauron and Saruman in the Lord of the Rings, right? And bringing the machine in, and the machine is not what we need. What we need is go back to our consciousness and how we co-create with each other. And when we go back to that, and as Bear was saying, then whether we use gold or whether we use an honor system or an honor credit system, pure bartering, all of that, it doesn't really matter, because we're all in just the pure abundance of the realm, and we're not in scarcity anymore. So you would have, for instance, cleaning the bathrooms. Let's say that you do have a village. Well, it's an honorable thing for a teenager coming up in the society to take on that role, because it's honorable to keep our bathrooms clean, right? So it's a total flip of how we think and how we and that is, I think, how we get there is by going into the private, by going into smaller communities and testing this out in smaller communities to start.
What do you feel, Bear?
Well, like if you go to old school medicine, you had a master in the village that the community supported because they wanted that practitioner to be very masterful. And they recognized that that was his vocation, what he came into this embodiment to do. And it was in their best interest to support that individual so that he could be the very best he could be. And if another generation sought that same vocation, then they felt it an honor to be able to be selected by the master to learn. And they were very open and willing to sweeping his floors and cleaning his toilet and fetching him food. And you know, that's just the way it would work. And I don't know about you, but, you know, the more you interact with people on a different level, we're very selective on who we have in our life these days. You know, not in any manner of judgment, but just, you know, there's certain types of energies you choose to have around you. And the people in our life, we all recognize when things are just maintaining a nice balance. So if something gets done for somebody, it's just a natural reciprocation and everybody just keeps it square as they go. And that's the way I believe a whole society should work. Now, the one thing we haven't really touched on too much is the real cure, which is to reconnect with nature. There's a reason why I live out here off grid, miles away from cell service and everything. And when you are in wilderness area, which we are, and if you farm, you know, we have a medicinal herb farm, then you learn there's no such thing as black. In the surrounding wilderness area, everything is pristine, everything just self-sustains. And then we mimic that whole process here on our farm. You know, we call it permaculture, biodynamics, it doesn't matter. But, you know, you learn nature's ways and then you follow suit and everything grows great. The insects don't take too much. You don't try to kill them because you realize they're part of the ecosystem. And, you know, you've got the animals, you've got bears and elk and deer and otters and, you know, we've got the river life down there. And everything's pretty copacetic when you just leave nature alone. That includes our own bodies. And that's the way we could all live. You know, we have a toilet outside the bathhouse and you know, it's just self-cleaning. There's worms in there that gobble up all the stuff. We don't need sewer systems. You know, it's water flush. It's not funky or, you know, hippy-dippy or anything. You know, we live very nicely and elegantly out here, but we've learned how to use natural mechanisms so that we can be off-grid, be self-sufficient, but more than anything, create you know, for 7 generations, you know, so those generations down the line have, you know, better soil than, you know, than what we came into, because if you're doing it right, you keep improving things. So you're not just thinking of yourself, you're always thinking about your grandkids and their grandkids. Mm-hmm. And, you know, why would you want to spoil that? It's just unconscious, but as soon as you remove yourself from nature and you cover the earth with concrete and everything that we see and bombard ourselves with Wi-Fi and blast ourselves with 5G and breathe toxins that are aerosolized in this, you know, everybody goes to sleep and nobody cares about anything except entertaining their own fears, which go back to money. You don't search a vocation. You say, how much money can I make?
Whoa. If you enjoyed that one you just saw, you will love this one on the screen. Click it and enjoy.